question is, what do you think is that number one skill that you have always used whenever overcoming the hurdles of life?
Right. So the question is pertaining to life, right? So I guess fatherhood and motherhood is the best because it teaches you and you can learn from it at all, you know.
Fantastic.
So nothing else can teach you the kind of life that you have.
Fantastic, beautiful answers. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is the start of the session, that you know how the session is going to be. Leaders, stage is all yours. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think good afternoon to everybody. And a very warm welcome to all of you all. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of the big CI show, which in my opinion is a very unique concept, which brings together the best the digital technology that has to offer. You know, it's very commonly said that data is the new oil, and we all know that, right? But then I just wanted to add one more element and a dimension to it. If data is the new oil, then I guess cloud is its pipeline, which carries the oil. We all know that. Without cloud, data will not be accessible. It will be not available to us as well. As you are aware, I mean, nowadays you have this AI, AR, VR, ML, data centers, analytics, IoT, which are quite relevant and pertinent in today's day and age in the tech circles. And with that, if you want to add one more element, I mean, it's the entire bonhomie around this cloud and data technologies. It just kind of gives you one more sort of surprise element. And how does one then go about doing what it needs to be done? So when it comes to data and cloud, there are a lot of challenges, you know, and how does one go ahead and overcome these challenges? And when it comes to technology, does technology really pave the way for rich user experience? Now, these are all pertinent questions which I'm sure all of you all will be eager to sort of understand and know about, right? And what better way than hearing from those who have well-entrenched and richly experienced in these concepts. Now, together, today, we have an elite panel of experts who have years and years of experience, hands-on experience in these concepts. And on behalf of Big CI Show, I would like to welcome all the panelists out here, right from RUCHA. We have ANUP, we have VINOD KUMAR, VINOD BHAT, and of course, we have Caesar with us. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And without further ado, let's discuss and gain some insights and valuable wisdom from the eminent personalities out here. I'd like to kind of start with the lady in the room, RUCHA. RUCHA, yours probably is one of the larger organizations which has a lot of mass production, massive supply chains, right? And I'm sure you must have launched several platforms within the organization, within the industry. It's a very large industry for you. And however, you all know that today's day and age, technology evolves very rapidly, extremely fast-paced. And with it, I'm sure there are a lot of adoption of new age SaaS-based platforms. And I'm sure you must have also adopted these kind of platforms in your tenure as well. So can you talk to us about how did you manage to replace these legacy applications and move on to and migrate on to these SaaS-based platforms?
Sure. First of all, very pleased to be here. So thanks for having me here. Great question, Ninad. I think I'll step back for a second to say, how and why are we deciding to go to SaaS versus building your own thing? Which is a lot of our legacy applications we have built them over time, right? One is, yes, you said it is moving so fast. Would you rather spend your energy in building something that is going to differentiate you in eyes of your customer, or would you build something that is really something that another company has had years and years of experience building and perfecting and have put industry best standards in, right? So that's the first thing that comes in, that will you put so much energy into keeping up with something that you're building? For what would you put that energy in? And that's where these SaaS companies are becoming quite prevalent in proven functions supporting those. Now, anytime you pick up a SaaS application, it is hardly about technology, the implementation, because you go out there, you assess, and you'll realize that there are quite a few players. One of them would fit your function the best, your requirements the best. But then the real work starts, because it is not just about technology. It is there, it's ready. It is now about, when you are an organization as big as Mahindra is, or even my previous organizations that I've been part of, it is about people, process first, and then it's about technology. We have 27 plants. You bring standardization in. You have to have tremendous change management put in to adopt what SaaS is providing. Otherwise, you'll be in the same boat again. You will change it so much that the standardization has gone. So I think these are some of the things that organizations that are big, that have various, and we have different industries even, not just one, not just auto, not just farm, right? Many, many industries Mahindra is in. So this is where the grit part comes in, if I may say so, that you want to really have this mindset, the right champions, people sponsoring right at the top, that is going to trickle down the message and say, yes, you're implementing a new technology, but it is for a reason, that is for business growth. That's the reason we are all going to get behind it and deliver. So I would say you start with people and process, and then comes the technology, especially in where you have standard SaaS platforms coming in. I'm not talking about Salesforce where you build your own thing, but you're really buying an application that is for a particular function. That comes first.
Wow, great. Thank you so much. Interesting. RUCHA talks about people, process, and then comes technology. I'll come to that particular point later on as well. We'll have a discussion on that. We'll sort of move on to Caesar, Peter here. Caesar, you're from Confluent, and which prides itself in bringing about a lot of innovation in the global markets, especially around its databases, large databases, data warehouses, and data lakes, right? Can you talk to us about how does one modernize legacy databases?
Thank you for that. So Confluent, we do only one thing, which is data in motion. We don't do too many things. That's where we are specialized, and that's where we see adding value to the business, the readers like here, all over the world. The legacy applications are like a gold mines. You know, you can't just throw them away. But if you actually just keep them there, they will be like a landmines. You know, you don't use them. So as a Confluent, what we do is that we actually help customers who have large amount of data sitting in the traditional systems, whether it is mainframes of the world or the relational database, which have been archived at multiple years. We actually help those customers to put them onto our data streaming platform and provide the customers to have an accuracy of decision, very precise, and do things much more faster. I'll give you a real-time scenario. So let's say I'm a bank customer as an elite, let's say priority banking. I had 5 crores of rupees in my SB or FD. I did not transact with them for 5 years. I took the money and then went out of that bank. After 5 years, I go back to the particular bank to do another transactions. Assume that the customer, the agent out there looks at my profile and says, Mr. Caesar, welcome back. I know that you have been one of our priority banking. You have been a wonderful customer. How can I help you? Just imagine a situation. The whole of your transaction history was sitting in at rest. Now you're bringing them into a data in motion, putting my Aadhaar card or putting my passport number, and then says that. Then the whole way you would service that customer is going to be different. So which means that hiding that entire complexity of processing the data, bringing in from your data warehouses, from the real time, and do some harnessing it, and then putting in the front, that's where the data in motion that comes into the picture.
Wow, thank you so much, Caesar, for that interesting tidbit, emotions, rather than hiding the data and so on and so forth. And we'll come back to that as well. We'll like to go forward to Anup, who I believe is from Hector Beverages, right? And for those who don't know Hector Beverages, they are the makers and producers of Paperboat. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of us, while taking the flights, we all consume Paperboat. Very, very, I mean, it's very nice, and thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you.
Anup, as we know, I mean, nowadays, application architecture is rapidly evolving, right? Gone are the days of monolithic architecture. Everybody is now moving towards microservices and then API services and all. I'm sure all of us would like to know how do you sort of monetize these application services and microservices rather? If you can just talk to us about, and we'd like to know great insights from you, how do we sort of get into the microservices mode, API services mode? What are the challenges and how do we overcome, and what are the benefits of microservices?
Right. Yeah, great question. So, firstly, I am a big proponent of bespoke applications, and that is where all these technologies would come into the play. There is a misconception when it comes to the monolithic applications. A monolithic application doesn't just mean that entire thing is deployed on one server, okay? Your older API-based application are also called as monolithic applications. What you need to ask is whether you really need microservices or not. Because with microservices, so firstly I'm going to talk like a couple of negative points about it, okay? And this is kind of important for all of us to know as well. It adds to the complexity, and just because you are thinking that you have introduced microservices into your architecture, it doesn't mean that the performance is going to go up. It might go down as well, because number of calls increase, and these calls can be on discrete machines as well. Okay. So it really depends on what you are trying to build. Having said that, if you are building anything for scale, that is where the microservices then would come into the picture. If you're aware that my user count is not going to go beyond, let's say, the internal application 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 people, you might as well keep it simple. Yes, have your API-based architecture for sure, but don't bring unnecessary complexities. But when it comes to the scale, this is where the microservices again would come very, very handy to you. Reason is, firstly, you would identify which particular service is actually need the scale. On a monolith, you would not be able to understand that. You will just throw the hardware to the problem. You will never be able to fix that problem probably. But in microservices, it is easily identifiable what exactly is going wrong, which service is going wrong. You can then add more cloud power, or you can then try and fix that area. Deployment also becomes very, very easy. There is no single point of failure. So yeah, these are the benefits. And the last one is when you are working like when your teams are not very cohesive and they're working from all over the globe, there are certain benefits in terms of deploying it quickly and onboarding people who can be trained on that particular microservice and get the output from. So yeah, so these are some of the benefits. Just one last thing I would like to add about this is, it is, so you can't throw more and more cloud power to bad design and poor code. So that is still paramount, and then cloud helps you to scale. Cloud doesn't guarantee you, I mean, it doesn't guarantee you like neither the performance nor the scale. Your architecture has to be good to be able to leverage the cloud power. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. In fact, very, very interesting point. You can't throw cloud over everything, right? Because the design and code is very, very important. And you actually touch based on one point, which is scale, right? And is there, just wanted to kind of ask you another question, Erin. Is there any specific formula? I know it's a very difficult question, but is there a specific formula to reach a scale? And you mentioned that if you are reaching a scale, only then probably microservices comes into picture and helps as such, right? So is there a specific formula that anybody can use for scaling, you know? So suppose, say, for example, per minute, you are thinking of millions of customers, and then what kind of microservices architecture should be sort of implemented or launched?
Yeah, so basically, even with your, I mean, you don't have to be either monolith or completely microservice kind of a thing. You can still identify with your current applications couple of services which can actually be turned into kind of a micro service, and you can use cloud functions, Lambda functions, all the buzzwords that are there, and you can get a flavor of these things where, for example, there are notification services are there, or you are trying to access external data which is non-critical, you can still deploy it via microservices. So that's how. But in terms of just talking in terms of the scale part of it. There are no set formulas for that, but if you are aware of what you are trying to do in terms of the system and the end user of the application and the overall life cycle of the application, then yeah, you can easily decide whether to go ahead with the full microservice.
Absolutely true. Thank you so much, Anup. Let's move on to Vinod Kumar here. He comes from Fino Payment Bank, and nowadays payment banks are all over. There are so many payment banks coming up, and so on. So it makes our life very easy. Everything is digital. And the payment bank industry prides itself in bringing about a lot of innovation in technology, via technology, in investments. It's an amalgamation of investments, financials, automation, and adopting a lot of technology, right? Now, there is also an element of, whilst we build the technology, there's an element of security, right? And the way I know about it, the banking industry is highly regulated industry, right? So, and it becomes very much pertinent. The moment we talk about cloud, it becomes critical, even more critical for us to kind of talk about the security. So if you can just let us know and talk to us about how does one build a cloud-centric security system, especially for the payment industry and probably other industries as well.
So let me take some of the points the fellow panelist mentioned. In a banking industry or banking, most of the applications is actually a hybrid model, I will say. One, the applications which are old applications which are already used, and there are applications getting developed on a day-to-day basis. The adoption of newer technologies is very important for any of the banking, especially the BFSI industry, to compete with the market expectation, to meet the expectations of the regulators and other controlling factors. So when the cloud is coming, earlier, maybe 5 years back, the regulators had a lot of restrictions or the view about whether it's secured or not, whether the banks are allowed to go to the cloud infrastructure or not. So that was creating a lot of issues. But I think COVID helped a lot in that actually. The remote accessibility of the application started, and the cloud growth and the way the banking industry grown, the kind of expectation which is actually coming across the industry, especially the API platform, the banking open platform industry actually grown up. Regulators also actually grown up with that, and they identified that the permitting all the hybrid models or the full cloud model or all three models are actually okay, as long as the security is ensured. And they evaluate the entire platform, not whether it is a on-prem or it's a cloud. As long as the security measures are met there, they are okay with it. So from a regulator's perspective, their controls are more of the platform, the security, not whether it is on cloud or hybrid or on-prem. So that's the way it is moved on right now.
All right, so you're talking about more about the platform security rather than the cloud security. So just another question, a related question to you. Once we get onto the cloud, and there are a lot of agreements that we have to sign and so on and so forth. So is there any specific clause that we have to be very, very careful about when we sign these cloud agreements, especially around security? Is security, and this is a very common question and a dilemma that everybody faces, right? Wherein, is security the responsibility of the organization or the security is the responsibility of the cloud service provider?
So RBI is actually giving a very stringent requirement there from outsourced activities. So be it outsourced financial activities or outsourced activity wherever the data is actually residing. So it's about 5-6 pages actually mentioned what all things we can do and what all the assessments we need to do while outsourcing any of the activity to any, especially financial impacting activities to the partners. So we need to go through that, and I face at least 3 or 4 audits from C-side. In that, they specifically go to the outsourced activities and go each and every option, each and every points that we outsourced, how that has been outsourced, and what are the controls, how secured, and sustainability of all those outsourced partners. So to in-depth knowledge they require, in-depth assessment it is required while it is coming from even not only from a security perspective, but the organization whom you are outsourcing, how they are actually standing in the market. Up to that level they go. Even while we are outsourcing, they check if it is a large application we are outsourcing, they check actually what are the in the market, what kind of reputation that company holding today. All those needs to be actually assessed. That needs to be gone through multiple forums, like we have operational risk management, the compliance team. So all of the teams actually needs to review those and approve. Then only this kind of outsourcing can be done. So very well written, documented process that needs to be adhered with.
All right, so there is well-documented processes and that needs to be added to it. Makes life easier for technologies as well as the organizations and of course the cloud service providers. Well said, thank you so much. That was Vinod for us. We'll now go forward to another Vinod. He's from Tata VISTARA. They fly us to various destinations and I personally like VISTARA as such. And I'm sure here a lot of other people also would like VISTARA as such. Now, Vinod, as we know, I mean, the airlines industry as such, it takes pride in itself being the early adopters of technology. And today's day and age, again, I mean, there's AI, ML, and robotics, they are all buzzwords. But there is one more buzzword that is prevalent in the tech circles, which is edge computing, right? Now, and I'm sure you must have implemented, a lot of people would have implemented edge technology, especially the airlines industry, which prides itself being a customer-centric, customer-oriented airlines industry and organization. So what are your recommendations and what do you sort of suggest and recommend to our technologies here and other people here? How does one gain advantage or benefit by using edge computing? Is there really an edge using edge computing?
Ninad, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be part of these panel discussions. So let me give a little bit context because, let's understand first the cloud because the journeys are a lot of organizations, probably 80-90% of the organizations are on that digital transformation journey, rightfully so. But the organizations who are looking to mature in the cloud journeys are the organizations who want to right size the cloud architecture. See, right sizing hasn't happened in the industry. If you look at it, you cannot send gigabytes of data to the cloud for a decision which needs to be taken probably at the airport, probably at the plant. It doesn't make sense because you are consuming your storage, you are consuming your network, you are consuming your cost is going up. And more importantly, you are not helping business. You are not helping business. You may be green on the cloud, but there may be a variation. So I think the first thing is that let us understand that edge computing is decentralizing cloud. How much you can decentralize, it will depend on the business. Which business processes you can decentralize from the decisioning point of view, that will depend on the business. But there is a concept of edge cloud. So we need to understand that edge cloud are the micro cloud architectures existing in a larger cloud universe. I think that's the best way I can explain. So if you now relate these micro edge cloud zones, you can probably think like this, that if I have to address the safety part of it, there may be all the processes related to safety handled by a particular small edge cloud network. Same thing if I take again airlines as an example, baggage handling related all the processes, fantastic. The whole preventive maintenance, the whole customer experience. Because somebody is walking to the airport and he's using the thermal cameras, and thermal cameras is saying that this person has a temperature more than 100. You can't send that gigabytes of data to this and come to know after 1 hour that yes, that guy was already, that flight has taken off. So you can decentralize that and you can actually take those decisions. So I think that is one thing from the architecture point of view, business point, rationalization perspective, very important. Then the second element which I want to put on this is the 5G. I think we cannot ignore the 5G aspect because edge computing needs the upgrade of the hardware. It also needs the hardware, and I say it is the processing because you want to do the local analytics. Why do you do the analytics? Analytics because data is everywhere. You have got IoT devices, you name it. You have got sensor devices, you name it. All these devices generate what? Data, that's all. In what shape and form you have to consume the data. When I say consume, you have to draw some inferences from the data. and you put on top of it the AI algorithm as well, and say that, what does it mean for me? And more importantly, is it happening in real time? So all these parameters are actually crucial for your business decisioning, and you need to put those use cases which will qualify for edge computing, which will qualify for the edge cloud, which will qualify for your network, for your security, for your rationalization. I think that is very, very important. And 5G will actually open up more use cases for you. Because today you are only thinking about your business process, which has been there for ages. Maybe some of those are changed last maybe 2-3 years because of pandemic. But you imagine that today a person who is traveling just needs a PNR, valid PNR for travel, right? But today we don't do any background checks. 5G can enable that. Even if you have a valid PNR, you can actually do that checks on the fly, and you can actually stop a person from traveling. So there is enormous potential from the edge computing perspective, 5G perspective. And I believe that the organization, if I say one thing to the audience, that will be that right size your cloud architecture. That's all.
Right, well said, right sizing. And you touched base on 5G. It has also touched a raw nerve, because whilst we were in the olden age of probably 1G, 2G, 3G, and now we're talking about 4G. But now this 5G is an interesting concept. Do you think that 5G is already here? Do you think that is going to be launched very soon, or it's already probably launched? And how is it going to change the entire landscape of the global traffic, data and traffic also, right? Because you touch based on the IoT piece, you touch based on the real-time transfer of data. So how is this going to change the landscape? If you can just probably elaborate for the benefit of our technologists here.
Yeah, I think, see, 5G will be the game changer from your business perspective, as I said that, and you can take those calls right there where it is happening. That means the decisions can be taken closer to the source, and the data transmission can be quite fast, and analytics engines can be very effective. And I believe that if you take the, you talked about AR, VR a little bit, but if you put the metaverses of the world, that will consume a lot of, because you're talking about digital avatars, you need a lot of bandwidth to demonstrate those use cases. Because if I have to, for example, if I have a maintenance engineer, for example, in a plant, and they need to fix a machine, I think through 5G, with that network, with that bandwidth, along with the new age technologies, can really help. Plus, you can actually take the business to the next level.
Oh, great insights, taking the business to the next level. That's what VINOD BHAT says. And I think those are really, really nice and important critical elements. I'm sure you would be aware of this. If not, probably we can meet VINOD BHAT offline as well when he's around. Let's go back to RUCHA here, the only lady in the room probably on the panel. And RUCHA, you being the group CIO of Mahindra, which is a very large organization, you probably would be in the thick of things along with your business leadership, in planning and charting the next course of action as far as the digital landscape is concerned, technology landscape is concerned, right? And of course, in resulting in performance improvement and so on and so forth. If you can just let us know, for the benefit of the audience here, how do organizations transform themselves using data and cloud? And if there are any challenges, and how does one overcome those challenges as far as data transformation, other transformation journey is concerned, using data and cloud?
I think Vinod rightly said that just about everybody is on some sort of journey toward cloud, and I 100% subscribe to the idea that you have to right-side your journey. We are in similar industry, right? Something that belongs right next to the plant belongs right next to the plant and not necessarily in a huge cloud somewhere. That said, cloud does allow you to do things which were not possible before. Like I would be out in the market to buy a Superdome computer every time I wanted to run a machine learning model would be impossible to do, right? The other aspect that comes in is how much data everything generates. I usually like to say that I'm the only dumb thing left. Everything else is smart now. Every single thing is smart, right? So all this data, without you knowing it, has become big data. Everything has become big data, right? Which was a buzzword a few years ago. It has become the norm. Now, in a company like Mahindra, where we have various industries, we know different aspects of a customer. I may know that you like to holiday in Coorg, and you drive a Thar, and you're buying something of firstcry.com, so you have a young child. Now, all of this, how do we compose, bring it all together to serve our customers better? That is one aspect of using data, and how to bring all of this data together and harness it quickly, and that becomes possible through cloud computing type things. The other aspect I'll tell you is, I think I have international experience working in international companies, and now I look at in India. When you try and make a cloud transformation business case in a country like, say, US, just changing geography will give you enough financial benefit.
Right.
Emptying out a data center will be quite an attractive financial prospect. Here, not so much. We're Mahindra. We have real estate everywhere, right? I may empty out one floor of one building, so what? So now the aspect is real application and modernization. The right architecture for distributed and central computing. The right application of the data you are collecting from everywhere. And today, you talked about plants and a mechanic going into the plant repairing something. Think about our vehicles. Think about our car, the newest XUV 700. The amount of data it generates. One aspect of that is making decisions right there and quickly coming to those insights. Another aspect is long-term improving on that, which is where you need to collate the data. You need to be able to run heavy compute on it, AI, ML, do the modeling on it, so you know your next generation what it should have. So these aspects, I think I completely agree that it is just about where your cloud is. But it is becoming a norm everywhere, and we are no exception. We are no exception. But what we are keeping in mind is how is it accelerating our digital journey that is continuously focused on customer. From there down, everything is being enabled through cloud, whether it is your data processing that is becoming faster and more comprehensive, whether it is your digital journeys, whether it is your POCs that you want to do cloud, vision computing tomorrow and you have it available. It is about the agility of anything that you want to enable technology-wise.
Right, so you spoke about the customer being the first, and there on probably you can chart out all the processes, your design, your products, keeping in mind the customer, and then comes the sort of the technology piece as well.
Yes.
And interesting is about the distributed technologies as well as distributed architecture and the geographies, right? So is there a lot of difference between the geographies, since you mentioned that you have worked for several organizations overseas and now in the Indian context? Is there a lot of difference between what happens overseas in the different territories and what happens in India?
Not really. I think it's a melting pot. I don't believe so.
Okay.
And in fact, I mean, you look at it, I think talent-wise, Indian talent is globally sourced everywhere. So I don't think in technology-wise there is any difference. There may be differences of investment, how fast some investments have been made in some areas versus the other, but we're catching up so fast. I think 5G was enabled 2-3 months ago in US, and today's Economic Times, a whole page is on, auction starts in June here. So we are hardly behind on anything now.
All right, so we're quite comparable, and probably we are...
Very comparable.
Yeah, we are leaders in some aspects as well.
Very much. In fact, payments, I mean, phenomenal, right? Nobody, I don't know which country in the world has this kind of highways built for payment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Aadhaar card, CoWIN, come on.
Of course, CoWIN was a big,
absolutely,
big leadership kind of thing. That product was amazing, phenomenal. I think no other country could kind of manage this massive scale, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, RUCHA. Can we probably, it would be great if you can share one key takeaway for the benefit of the audience, which will help them in their journeys. I'm sure they must be in the midst of the transformation journey, cloud transformation journey, or they're planning the journeys. Just one key takeaway, quick.
I think it's a universal thing, but never take your eyes off your North Star. And in general, it has been the customer. Any decisions that you're making about technology, and they invariably will affect people across the board, your company, your customers, your partners. How is it delivering your goal for the customer? Anything and everything starts from there and leads there.
Right. So everything is revolving around customer. That's the one key takeaway. Thank you so much, Rucha, for talking to us. I'd like to kind of go back to Anup here. Anup, with your rich sort of background in a lot of early organizations and now in this organization in the technology field as well, can you share your experiences pertaining to sort of data warehouse implementation, adoption, and then, of course, modernizing this entire data warehouse? And I'm sure the audience would love to kind of hear that as well.
Right. So the pace at which the technologies around the data are evolving, it's quite fascinating. And again, in terms of data warehouse and cloud, one is you have your data warehouse and you deploy it on one of the cloud providers. And second is this like data warehouse as a service kind of offerings that are there in the market. What we need to understand here is, yeah, so one is you have to push massive amount of data on the cloud when you are doing that, and that is fine. Most of that is one time because you don't change the data that you push on the warehouse, right? So once you understand the costing model of some of these services, you would be able to take better decision in terms of whether to go ahead with these services or not. The benefit again that are provided compared to the traditional data warehouses. So again, there's so many other like technologies, right? You can for everything that we talk about NoSQL and all, most of the data in all of our organization, like 80% of it is just a number I'm throwing, okay? But it is still like relational data, right? So in relational data as well, whether you have to choose a column store kind of a warehouse or you would choose a non-column store typical cluster based warehouse, these are the calls you'll still have to take. The benefit that you get by using these new technologies, cloud data warehouses, is not just that you can just support a big size of the data. It also, in terms of the kind of crunching that you can do, the churning that you can do on that data at a scale is massive. Your local warehouses probably would not be able to meet that. And in terms of data being, like we all know how critical the data is, but one thing again, what we have to really understand is that more data doesn't mean better results always, okay? Let's say you have sales data for last 4, 5, 6 years, and more than that. The world is changing so fast, and that's what we are talking about. A lot of that data is just garbage. You put more data into a model and then it actually practically throws poorer results. So case by case you have to decide what you have to take on the cloud. But yes, coming back to the central point of the new warehousing technologies, I think they have a lot of potential, and the scale at which they can crunch your data, churn your data is phenomenal. So.
Right, thank you so much. Data warehouses, the new technologies, data lakes, they help you churn a lot of data. And of course, one point that you mentioned about, which is more data doesn't necessarily mean results, right? It has to be the right set of data as well for you to capture. Any key takeaways for the audience?
Yeah. So, and just to add to that point, with all the technologies and all the power, if your data is not in right shape, your master data is not correct, you won't be able to do much with nevertheless what kind of data you have, this is the given thing, right? Yeah, I would like to just second the point that the change management is everything, all said and done. Unless you have a good change management process set in your organization and your leaders are championing the change, that is where it should start. The change management, you can train everyone, and that can start from the grassroots, but the change starts top bottom. So put a lot of energy in change management.
Well, thank you so much, Anup. Well said. Change management is very, very important, and it becomes a very important, pertinent topic for all the CIOs out here. Sort of how do they manage the change within the organization as such? Because there are a lot of prioritizations to be done, right? And we all face that on a regular basis. It's like BAU for us. So thank you so much. Let's talk to Vinod here. Vinod, if you can just recommend and put your recommendations to our audience who are either sort of have already started and embarked on their cloud transformation journey or probably planning to embark on that journey. And if you can just kind of elucidate those points, what should be done, especially around what shouldn't be done, what are the pitfalls, how do we avoid those pitfalls, and how do we kind of manage to resolve those pitfalls?
Yeah. So especially I'll be talking more from a banking perspective. So banking, a lot of controls, especially the regulators put. First of all, the toughest part is that to have submitting one report in half yearly we need to submit. It's called SAR report, the system audit report to be certified by a certain auditor. That needs to be saying that all the data residing in the transactional data or customer data where the banking is done, it should be residing in India. Controlling that became a very big challenge. So before actually adopting the cloud part of it, we need to ensure that how we can actually ascertain that the data is within India or as per the regulatory requirement which is going to coming up. So that is one part which we need to very a stringent decision we need to take about. That is first one. Second part, while we are moving a lot of changes that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, a lot of some of the service providers giving some services and some of the service provider will not be adopting all the stuff. For example, while we are going for HSM, the hardware secure model kind of solution that is required, many providers doesn't give or support some of the solutions. Some others actually giving. So all these conflicts needs to be identified first before actually going for the architecture, where and which what kind of devices where we should be putting. It should be on-prem or it should be a cloud or it should be a 100% on-prem or cloud model. So those kind of architecture and the components that will go into that overall infrastructure part, that is to be identified and take a decision where to move on. Even though there are so many other component IAS while we are taking, we need to look into SaaS and the PaaS while we are looking in, and security part, security component. While especially in a banking, it's a more of the throughput game. So how the throughput can be managed, because if there are applications which are residing on-prem like the core banking system and we got transaction system we are taking to other environments, how this can be or how much bandwidth needs to be there, the delay that can happen, all those aspects needs to be identified prior to adoption of cloud. Ensure that the kind of latency that we require that is available, and then only we can actually do the migration or the transformation of or adoption of the new technologies. That is very important for us.
Thank you so much, Vinod. Any key takeaways?
I think regulators stand first. So we should be identifying those requirements first before adoption of any of the new technologies or new architecture, especially in the banking environment. More than technology, is more of actually meeting the compliance side of it.
Thank you so much. So let's go to Vinod Bhatt. Now, Vinod, we all know that this entire cloud, it has become a quintessential element of the digital tech space. If you can just let us know what are the challenges that you face and the solutions that you deployed as pertaining to the hybrid multi-cloud element.
Yes, I think a very important aspect that, first of all, cloud journey, going to that is the first decision you have to take. More important decision is that, are you going to put all the eggs in one basket? And if you are going to do that, at what cost? So you need to have a hybrid / multi-cloud strategy for your business. And several reasons, it can be because of your BCP, business continuity, your disaster recovery. It may be your cost, it may be your data privacy, because you don't want the data to go out because one cloud provider is sitting somewhere in Europe, some other person is sitting in Singapore, you want someone who has a data center probably Oracle here. So those aspects need to understand. While it's good to have, but it come up with its own challenges. So challenge is that you need to have a cloud security policy for the organization, particularly when you are going for a multi-cloud, because all these cloud partners are running their own race in terms of architecture, in terms of native functionalities, in terms of security. So for your organization, you need to understand that which cloud provider is providing what and how does it fit into your policy. And those changes need to be understood, implemented, because there can be a lot of loose ends left in the organization which can actually compromise. I think that's the first thing. Second is how the user access is managed now across the cloud platforms. I think that is the second challenge, very important. And because if somebody is getting into the system or out of the system, how does it happen seamlessly? How do you build automation now? You are talking about automation in a process. Now we are talking about automation in a multi-cloud environment. So very important that we understand, because the more you automate, it is good, because you are leaving less chances for the errors which can happen. Also the whole patch management, the whole application hardening on the multi-cloud is very, very different. So I think that is the other challenge, so it's very important. And the most important is, why do I get the visibility? Why do I see the dashboard across the multi-cloud? If I have to really look at as a head of the IT, that which transactions, which workloads, which cost, which security, I need single pane of glass. I think that is the other thing which is very important when you are devising the whole multi-cloud strategy. Those are some of the challenges in the industry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very nice of you, Vinod. Any key takeaways for the audience?
If it is cloud and analytics, I would suggest that, one size doesn't fit here at all. Please create your own strategy, don't copy. Understand what is relevant. A lot of technology is there, don't worry about it. Technology is there. But create your own digital maturity roadmap, which has two strategies. One is long-term, second is incremental. That's all.
All right, thank you so much, Vinod. Vinod speaks with experience. Thank you. Caesar, finally, like to talk to you. Now we all know that data. It is commonly known that data is the new oil. However, stagnant data without sort of analytics or analytical engine doesn't make sense. It has no value. So, I mean, if you can share with us your thoughts around the value proposition of data in motion, and how does one gain value out of data?
Yeah. So I think RUCHA was talking about, every device, we have a smart TV, our cars are becoming more smarter than what it used to be, our fridges are becoming very different, so everyone is throwing data. So the data in itself, it doesn't add any value unless and until it is real time, and it is actually, as somebody said, I think some of the panelists said, we actually pick up what is relevant to us, remove the noise, and find out what is helps us to take a decision. So that's actually the power of the data in motion. So accurate decision that helps the people to decide better. Second one, the cost is very important factor. Just because it is there, IT does not have an infinite budget, so we also need to work on the finite budget. The resilient is another one. You also need to look at the multi-cloud environment, because there's so much investment has been done. So eventually, you need to look at an architecture on top of this with the data in motion, helps to lay a very strong foundation with the data.
Thank you, Caesar. Well said. Any key takeaways?
So I strongly believe the CIOs, CTOs, Chief Digital Officers are the backbone to any organization. I have seen that. So they are the lighthouse to the organization. If you look at the hub and spoke, the one thread which ties up every organization is the IT division. So they are not just sit anymore outside of the organization, they sit in the board and help every one of the organization to decide better. What is most important for them, I've seen that, is to keep their oil burning, keep the whole flow going, but they also need to look at what are all the new trends that can help my business to cut costs, become more effective, and how I can help my business to grow better. So the foundation for that is the data. So now again, the data, how do you actually leverage, is one of the points that we actually help the CIOs and CTOs and CDOs.
Well, thank you so much, Caesar. Caesar talks about the foundation, which is data, and data is the foundation for everything. going forward. So with that, wow, that was basically a very power-packed discussion on the hottest topic around the tech circles, which is cloud and data. And I'm sure all of you would have gained certain important insights into strategies, planning, and especially within the, what is important is what should we be mindful about whilst kind of embarking on our transformational journeys, cloud transformation journeys. So thank you so much. And I think we have some time for questions. I am looking forward to the organizers here. I think we have time for one question. If we can request somebody to circulate the mic here. And I'm sure our expert panels out here would be able to sort of address those questions. We'll be very happy. Just one question.
Hi, good afternoon. It was really insightful discussions. Just little bit confusions here. That one gentleman was saying that cloud security, regarding the cloud security, how to assess and all. So nowadays people are talking about zero trust network architecture and SaaS approach. So if we would like to stay in the time to market, then we'll have to consume multi-cloud environments as well. And people are talking about SaaS approach. If we are going to implement those, still we are secure. So what do you think? SaaS is a complete security framework, or still we need to do something more apart from that employee awareness training and continuous cyber drill, intrusive and non-intrusive in the nature? Still it's perfect, or still do you think something more needs to be done to ensure our multi-cloud environment is secure?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
See, let's understand first what are the security paradigm we have today in the organization. Today you have got network as a separate security, and you have got security as a security separate. So SaaS is a platform or a framework which is, if I have to expand that, it is Secure Access Service Edge. So what it does is that it really consolidates the overall framework, and on top of it you put the zero trust. So this is going to be the future, because today you have still loose ends where the data breaches or cyber breaches can happen, because it is not role based. You cannot today identify the packets in the network, which SASE and ZTNA will give you tomorrow. So it is a journey of the maturity you want to go to, and map your use cases, because in BFS it may be a lot stringent than an organization which may not have to go to ZTNA. I said that one size doesn't fit all. Please tick out the boxes which are relevant for you, and if you feel that you are qualified for that, absolutely you should go for it.
Well, thank you so much. I am sure that addresses your question. If not, and other questions you have, we are offline here. We can actually take those questions as well. We are out of time and organizers are kind of standing here. So with that, I would like to thank the panelists out there, the expert panelists, for sharing their experiences with us and deep insights in the breakthrough data and cloud technologies. And on behalf of the panelists as well, I would like to thank all of you for joining us and making this particular session and a panel inclusive as such. And finally, I would like to thank the organizers out here, TrustCon team, the Big CIO Show team, for inviting us and organizing this event. And thank you so much. I'd like to hand it over back to the host here. And a big round of applause for our panelists here. Thank you so much.